Freddie Mercury, The Final Curtain. On August 9th, 1986, Freddie Mercury walked onto a stage for the very last time. His doctor had warned him not to perform. His voice was failing. And somewhere in that enormous crowd, a young fan's life would tragically end during the emotional strains of Who Wants to Live Forever. Yet what unfolded that evening became one of the most legendary nights in rock history. From John Deacon's shocking backstage outburst to Mercury's haunting disappearance after the final bow. To truly understand what happened that night, we have to go back to where it all began. Early life. Freddie Mercury was born on September 5, 1946, in Zanzibar, a small island that was then part of a British protectorate. His parents were Parsi and followed Zoroastrianism, one of the oldest religions in the world. From the very beginning, Freddie was different. He was born with 4 extra teeth, and he later believed this physical quirk gave him an extraordinary vocal range, one that would eventually span 4 full octaves. Growing up surrounded by African, Arab, and Indian cultures, Freddie absorbed a richness of influence that would later pour itself into his music and performance style. When Freddie was just 8 years old, his parents made a decision that would change the course of his life. They sent him to St. Peter's, a British-style boarding school in Panchgani, near Mumbai, India. It was there that he first started calling himself Freddie, and it was there that his deep love for music was born. A perceptive teacher noticed his natural talent and encouraged his parents to invest in music lessons, a life-changing decision. At St. Peter's, Freddie formed his first band, the Hectics, with 4 school friends. They played rock and roll covers of artists like Cliff Richard and Little Richard, and even at just 12 years old, Freddie's gift was undeniable. He also fell in love with Bollywood singers like Lata Mangeshkar, whose soaring voice left a lasting impression on a young boy who would one day captivate the world. In 1964, the Zanzibar Revolution turned violent and dangerous for families like Freddie's. Thousands were killed, and his family was forced to flee. They eventually settled in a small house in Feltham, near London. Life wasn't easy at first, but Freddie was driven. He enrolled at Ealing Art College, where he developed strong skills in graphic design, skills he would later use to design Queen's iconic logo. To make ends meet, he worked odd jobs, including washing dishes at Heathrow Airport, becoming Queen. It was at Ealing that Freddie met Tim Staffel, who was in a band called Smile with guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor. Freddie became close with them quickly, frequently offering ideas about their performances and stage presence. In 1970, when Tim left the band, Freddie stepped in as their new lead singer. It was Freddie who suggested they rename the band Queen, because it sounded grand, powerful, and theatrical. Their first concert under that name took place in June 1970 at a charity event. The lineup was completed in 1971 when bassist John Deacon joined the group. Around the same time, Freddie made another bold decision. He changed his surname to Mercury, inspired by a line from a song he had written. Mother Mercury, look what they've done to me. Queen's early years were far from glamorous. Their debut album in 1973 failed to chart in the UK and barely scraped into the top 100 in the US. Their second album didn't do much better. The band was growing frustrated, wondering if they would ever break through. Then came Sheer Heart Attack, their third album, and with it, the song that changed everything, Killer Queen. Killer Queen. Freddie wrote Killer Queen one evening while sitting at his piano. Unusually for him, the words came first, before the music. The song told the story of a sophisticated, high society woman of questionable virtue, and what set it apart wasn't just a story, it was a sound. Brian May played a dazzling guitar solo using a 6-pence coin as a pick, and the production layered sounds in a way no one had quite done before. The song reached number 2 in the UK and number 12 in the US, finally establishing Queen as a serious force in music. But it almost didn't happen. Killer Queen was recorded last, and very nearly left off the album entirely. Roger Taylor had worried that its light, playful tone would make Queen seem less like a serious rock band. There was a genuine debate within the group about whether to include it at all. Fortunately, they did. Then came Bohemian Rhapsody. Released in 1975 as part of a night at the opera, it transformed Queen from successful to legendary. The song took 3 weeks to record, involved 180 separate vocal overdubs, and cost £40,000 to produce. making it the most expensive single ever recorded at the time. It was unlike anything on the radio. A slow, emotional opening, an operatic middle section, and an explosive rock finale, all in one track. EMI executives were horrified. They thought it was far too long, and demanded the band cut it down for radio play. Queen refused. Instead, their manager secretly gave the song to popular DJ Kenny Everett, who played it 14 times in a single weekend. Fans went absolutely wild. The song topped the UK charts for 9 straight weeks. Queen also revolutionized the music video. The clip for Bohemian Rhapsody was filmed in just 4 hours and cost only £4,500, yet it was completely groundbreaking. The famous shot of the 4 band members' faces arranged in a prism pattern, created through a technique called visual feedback, became one of the most iconic images in music history. It helped establish the music video as an essential part of house songs, glam rock, and evolution. Queen's live performances were as breathtaking as their videos. By 1975, during the A Night at the Opera tour, they were already using a custom lighting system of 168 lights and 12 aircraft landing lights, so massive it required its own generator. By 1986, at their famous Wembley concerts, their lighting rig had grown to over 1,000 lights, including a massive crown-shaped frame weighing 5 tons. Freddie himself evolved constantly. When Queen started, he was surprisingly shy on stage, often hiding behind his piano. The iconic half-mic stand he would become known for came about entirely by accident. One night, the stand broke during performance, and Freddie discovered that the freedom it gave him was better than the original. He kept it that way forever after. His style grew bolder with every passing year. In 1973, he began painting his nails black, inspired by Jimi Hendrix, and wore dramatic glam rock outfits designed by Xander Rhodes. By 1976, he was wearing his famous Harlequin jumpsuit, a tight costume that had to be sewn onto him before each show. In the 1980s, he transformed again, growing a thick mustache and adopting a more masculine look with leather pants and military-style jackets, inspired by the gay club scene in New York. His stage antics became wilder, too. During the Hot Space Tour in 1982, he rode on the shoulders of a crew member dressed as Darth Vader, while singing We Will Rock You. In Japan, he once stripped down piece by piece throughout an entire concert. Every performance was an event. Live Aid. The 1980s brought turbulence both within the band and outside it. Their 1981 album Hot Space divided fans who weren't ready for the funk and disco direction. Body Language was banned by MTV. In 1984, Queen performed in Sun City, South Africa, during apartheid, drawing sharp international criticism and a ban from the Musicians' Union. In Rio de Janeiro in 1985, crowds booed them. Internally, things weren't much better. Brian May nearly quit during the recording of the works, and John Deacon once disappeared to Bali without telling anyone. But on July 13, 1985, everything changed. Queen took the stage at Live Aid at 6:41 p.m., and in just 21 minutes, they delivered what is widely considered the greatest live performance in rock history. Freddie wasn't in good health and had vocal problems, but he performed anyway. He led 72,000 people at Wembley Stadium and 1.9 billion watching on television worldwide through a medley of their biggest hits. During Radio Gaga, he led the crowd in a synchronized clapping routine that became one of music's most iconic moments. Backstage afterward, Elton John reportedly told them, "You bastards, you stole the show." Queen's career was reborn. The Magic Tour. Energized by Live Aid, Queen threw themselves into a new album, A Kind of Magic, partially a soundtrack for the film Highlander. The title track came from a line in the movie, and Who Wants to Live Forever was written by Brian May after being moved by a scene from the film, featuring a sweeping 80-piece orchestra. It was majestic, emotional, and oddly prophetic. For the 1986 Magic Tour, Queen planned something on a scale they had never attempted before. 26 shows across 9 European countries in just 8 weeks. The stage was 160 feet wide with 2 long walkways extending deep into the crowds. It needed over 8 miles of cable to power everything. The video screen alone was 20 feet tall. The sound system was so powerful that people in nearby villages could hear the music and call to complain. The final concert. On August 9, 1986, Freddie Mercury walked onto the stage at Knebworth Park. He didn't know it would be his last performance with Queen. 120,000 people had gathered to see the show. That morning, his doctor had examined him and found his throat severely inflamed, urging him not to go on. Freddie refused to listen. He would not let his fans down. As the first chords of One Vision rang out, Freddie stood before that enormous crowd in his famous white tank top and tight jeans. His voice cracked on a high note during Under Pressure, but rather than retreat, he turned to the crowd and had them sing with him. The moment became even more powerful for it. When the band played Who Wants to Live Forever at 8:03 p.m., the lyrics seemed to take on a different weight entirely, as though Freddie was singing not just a song, but something deeply personal. Bohemian Rhapsody followed at 8:17, and Freddie gave it everything he had, even singing sections of the operatic Middle Live, which was usually played from tape. He hit a high note he hadn't attempted in years. The crowd erupted. The final song was We Are the Champions. His voice cracked again, but instead of pulling back, he held the note longer. The roar from the crowd was heard in villages miles away. At 8:59 p.m., the band played God Save the Queen, usually the signal for the band to leave, but Freddie stayed. He stood still, eyes closed, as the music washed over him. As the final notes faded, he turned to the crowd, bowed deeply, and said softly, "Thank you, lovely people. Good night and sweet dreams." It was 9:02 p.m. Freddie Mercury had just given his last live performance. Tragedy strikes. Backstage, something no one had ever seen before was unfolding. John Deacon, the quiet, steady bassist, threw his bass guitar across the dressing room, just 18. Minutes before the show, nearly hitting Roger Taylor's drum technician. Those who witnessed it were stunned. In 15 years with the band, Deacon had never behaved like that. He told Brian May afterward, "I can't do this anymore. It's too much." He seemed to sense, on some level, that this was the end. Despite his state, Deacon walked on stage and gave one of the finest performances of his career. Out in the crowd, tragedy struck. A 23-year-old fan named Michael Jennings collapsed during Who Wants to Live Forever, standing just 50 meters from the stage. Medics arrived quickly but could not save him. He was pronounced dead at 9:43 p.m., while the band was still playing Bohemian Rhapsody. Jennings had won his ticket just 2 days earlier in a radio contest. His friend Sarah, who was with him, later said he had been saying all night it was the best evening of his life. He had an undiagnosed heart condition, and the heat and excitement of 120,000 people proved too much. His death led to the introduction of stricter safety standards at large-scale concerts. After the show, Freddie left the stage almost immediately, completely out of character for a man who normally loved the post-show celebrations and lingered with the crew for hours. His assistant Peter Freestone later revealed that Freddie had received a troubling call from his doctor before the show regarding his health. Backstage, he whispered to Freestone, "I don't know if I can do this." Roger Taylor found him sitting alone in the dressing room. Freddie looked up and said quietly, "Darling, I think I've given it my all." Roger thought he was simply exhausted. Only later did he understand what Freddie truly meant. He has kept a drumstick from that night in his studio ever since. On the ride back to London, Freddie sat in silence, staring out the window, dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. The legacy. In April 1987, Freddie Mercury learned he had HIV, though some symptoms may have appeared as early as 1982. He kept it secret for years, from the public, from most friends, and even largely from his bandmates. The British tabloids, particularly The Sun, had begun running stories about his health as early as 1986, and the fear and stigma surrounding AIDS at the time only deepened his silence. Just one day before he died, on November 23, 1991, he released a public statement confirming his diagnosis. He passed away the following day, November 24, 1991, at the age of 45, from pneumonia brought on by AIDS. His partner Jim Hutton described his final moments as peaceful, calm, and radiant. Even in his final years, Mercury never stopped creating. He recorded The Show Must Go On for the Innuendo album while gravely ill. Brian May doubted he could manage the demanding vocals, but Frey reportedly downed a shot of vodka and said, "I'll do it, darling," before delivering a flawless take in one go. His very last recording session was on May 22nd, 1991, when he recorded A Winter's Tale, which later appeared on the posthumous album Made in Heaven. His final public appearance was at the Brit Awards on February 18th, 1990, where Queen received an award for outstanding contribution to British music. Freddie looked thin and tired, but he showed up. His only words on stage were, "Thank you, good night." Simple, dignified, perfect. Freddie Mercury left behind a musical legacy that grows with every passing year. Queen's Greatest Hits remains the best-selling album in UK history. His voice has billions of streams. And the memory of a man who gave every last piece of himself to his audience, even when it almost nothing left to give, lives on endlessly, beautifully, and forever. Sonnet 4.6. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check Re.